Hey, greetings all. Thanks for joining in. Um, Without further ado, take it away, Jeff.
There, there. Short, sweet, and to the point. Thanks, Milby. All right, so I'm Jeff Person. I'm the USAFL Umpire Association head coach. I believe I've met everybody on the call at some point. If I haven't, then please, by all means, reach out to me and uh, let me know that we haven't had a welcome talk yet, and we'll get that done and get you started on your career path with the Umpiring Association. We normally have done one umpire clinic or two umpire clinics. About 3 or 4 years ago, when COVID hit, we started doing them virtually to make it available to more people rather than running them at the Friday night at the regional tournaments. And that allowed us to record them. And we've got the last, I think, 6 or 7 of them out there on our website. This will be recorded and it will be included on the website as well. The topic for tonight is match management. And so what I'm going to do is share my screen, and I'm going to do a little bit of a couple of PowerPoint slides, and then I'm going to jump into a document that is draft. Is not available on the resources page just yet, but we're in the process of getting it finalized and making it available to everybody as yet another tool for you as an umpire in the USAFL. It's going to be primarily focused on the field umpires because match management falls mostly on their shoulders, but there are pieces of match management that do fall on goal and boundary umpires as well. So it's really good for the goal and boundary umpires to at least understand what field umpires are thinking and doing so that they can support their team. And we are a team always, goal, boundary, and field during any particular game. So flip over and get my sharing started. I'll just share the whole screen. It's probably easier that way. Share. All right, so I'm going to go to the first one and we'll start from the beginning. All right, so here we are, USAFL Umpire Association Umpire Clinic, February 26th of 2024. So what we want to focus on are three things. One, what is match management? Two, what are the match management tools that you have available to you? And then three, what are the tips and tricks on how to get better at match management? So that's what we're going to go through today. To get started, I'm going to go through this particular set of bullet points. And this does apply not just to Aussie rules, but this really applies to being an official referee or umpire in any sport. And so I picked this up from Referee Magazine. I know some of you get that and some of us actually read it. And so from the January issue, I pulled this out because I thought it would be a really good way for us to take a high level review of what does it mean when we start talking about match management. And so read through these and I'll read them as well. So, and think about, have you heard these? Have you applied these in games? How have these affected you in terms of your umpiring? Have you ever said them yourself? So for example, good officials don't need to hand out cards to control a game. Obviously, this particular one was aimed at soccer, but cards do apply to us. Not every sport has cards, obviously. The best officials give loads of cards. A call at the end of the game must be there. Call it the same both ways. Cut the losing team some slack in a blowout. Think about that for a second. And in terms of how you've umpired or refereed, not just this sport, maybe other sports. I know many of us do other sports. Think about that. Are these tools that you use? Are these myths? Have you heard these before? Think about these as we go through the rest of the presentation, and we're going to go in the document we're going to go through and the examples that we're going to be talking about later on as we go through this. Match management tools. There are several that you have available to you. There are 5 really. In the first one here, verbal, and it says sometimes quiet. Really depends on whether you have your referee voice on you or you're just going to talk to somebody at a moment where there's a break in the action. Verbal warning. And Millsy and I are going to tell a little story about one of the times I was able to use that with him when I was a player and getting him up to his level too. And it's something we've talked about for the last, 12 years now. It's one of my favorite stories. We'll go through that one. There's a free kick. there's a 50-meter penalty. There are yellow cards, there are red cards. And those are in order of ascension. So the lower you get on this, or the farther you dig into this, the more severe the penalty is. So we're going to talk about all of these. What does it mean? When do you apply them? How do you apply them? And what are some examples of when something happens? How do you decide which of these do you use? All right. We're also going to go into some tips and tricks on match management. So knowing how each tool is administered can be combined with where everything at is in the game, and knowing how and when to use each tool. So things that you want to consider. At what point in the match is the incident? Is it early? Is it later? If it's early, are you setting the tone? If it's later, are you consistent with how the match has been called? So I know, like in basketball, we talk about you don't want to call a hand check late in the fourth quarter if you haven't been calling hand checks all game. If you've been letting players bump around a little bit, you want to call something like that late in the fourth quarter. If you haven't called it earlier in the game, you want to be consistent throughout the match. Severity of the infringement. The more danger of the infringement or of the action requires a more severe penalty. So how much danger did one player put another player into? This is where we start getting into the difference between a 50, a red card, and a yellow card. What other incidents up to this point in the match? Is the contest escalating? So early in the match, there's usually everybody's pretty jacked up. They're running around. They want to get a few hits in. Usually it's pretty clean. There's plenty of time left. If you fall behind, you can catch up. If you're down a goal or two, if you're up a goal or two, players may start getting a little more chippy. If there's been some hits that haven't been called, some late hits or some low tackles or anything like that that haven't been called, tempers can start to escalate. So at what point do you start to build, or what point do you start to escalate the calls that you're making? And how do you escalate the penalties that you're applying? Another is, does there appear to be retaliation? You hear very often that it's the second infringement that gets caught. I got pushed in the back. I turn around and push the guy who pushed me, and suddenly I get called for a push because the umpire missed the first one. That happens not just in our sport, but in a lot of sports. And what penalties have already been administered so far? Has somebody been warned? Let's say they dropped an F-bomb and they were warned not to do it, or they gave up a free kick or whatever. If they've continued to do it, or if the team has continued to do something, has there already been something administered? Do you want to keep giving the same verbal warning 6 times? The first 5 times didn't work. I'm not sure why the 6th time would work. So these are all things that you want to think about, tips and tricks to follow these types of things to think about as to whether you use one or another of the penalty tools that you have available. All right, I'm going to pause here and see what kind of questions there are before we jump into more details around all of these things. Said I don't have the box open. Is there any questions or anything like that that I need to address first?
Not at this time. Anybody have any questions? If you do, put them in the chat box, and Jeff will take numerous breaks like this, and I will read them and we'll answer them. Back to you, Jeff.
All right. All right, so with that, I'm going to flip over to another tool here. It is in Word at the moment. It is a draft document that we have assembled at the board level in order to really capture a lot of the experiences that many of us have had for, in some cases, I'm thinking in particular of a very old umpire who's been doing this for a few decades now. And so I've been doing a lot of these phone coaching sessions, and I've been repeating myself over and over and over, not to the same umpires, but saying the same things to different umpires. And I thought, you know, maybe I should probably write this down and make this available so I don't have to say this so many times. And those who haven't had the opportunity to ask me questions, maybe they'll gain something out of it as well. And so that was the genesis behind this document, which then turned into our first virtual clinic for this year. So it's draft at the moment. It's not on the website, and it will be once we go through this and clean it up a little bit with any additional examples or changing around how we've written something up. So what I'm going to do is start here, and then I'm going to flip over to where these tools are available to you. So first, you can see the levels of control that you have, and these right here that I'm highlighting, these are the tools that you have available that are going to require a whistle. So when you blow your whistle, you say, hey, that's a free kick, or that's a 50-meter penalty, or that's a yellow card, or that's a red card. These are the tools that require a whistle. The one that is before this, if you recall the other slide, is the verbal warning. You don't need a whistle for that. You can do that when the ball goes out of bounds, or after a goal or behind, or at the intermissions, first or third period intermission or halftime. You can use that verbal at a whole bunch of different points throughout the match. These are the ones that require a red or yellow card, 50-meter penalty and free kick. These require a whistle and a stoppage of play because you have to let everybody know what's going on so that the players and coaches, et cetera, can adjust. So before I do that, I'm going to jump over to, is there a question, or is it somebody just not on mute? So I'm going to start here with what's available on the website. And let me put back over to this one, actually. So on the website, if you go to it on the right-hand side up at the top, you'll see that there's something called resources. I hope everybody's been to this page. And as you see here, it starts with the laws of the AFL. What are the approved changes that the USAFL has made to those laws so that we have our game here in the US? And then there's something here called the spirit of the laws. This is an older document. I don't know if the AFL continues to update this or not. All they would really update is just the picture and maybe their copyright. But here's what it looks like. It's a fold out, single page. And the whole purpose of this is to really think, or to let people know, how do we approach umpiring AFL? Right. You don't have to be 100% familiar with all the rules. If you understand how the game is going to be administered, then the rules actually make quite a bit of sense. And it's called the spirit of the laws. And you can see here, hopefully you can read it. It says the objective of the laws, A, to ensure the game is played in a fair manner in a spirit of true sportsmanship, and B, where possible in a contact sport, prevent injuries to players participating in the match. That, if you think about it, drives every single rule, every single law that is applicable to this game. And so there's 5 different categories that they've listed here. We're not going to go through it, but just read the headers. Contest for the ball, marking contests, ruck contests, tackling and holding the ball, then the 50-meter penalty. This is available on the website. You can download it. You can print it out. This gives you a very quick read through about how each of these 5 categories applies to the spirit of the laws. And again, read through this because it doesn't take but a couple minutes. But if you understand this, the laws that you need to apply actually make a lot of sense. Other resources out here are the policies of the USAFL UA, lightning and severe weather. You need to know what that is. There actually is a uniform policy, and that doesn't mean we have to be the same. That just means what we wear. And there's also some information about lifetime membership. And there's a whole bunch of materials and documents out here for you. And that's where we're about to go through. This one's going to end up in the documents section. We have materials to help you learn about the umpiring, field boundary, and goals. We have materials to help you with running. There's a diary out here so you can keep track of what you're doing and look back to how you've been improving and what things you want to work on. There are some old manuals out here. These are the ones I had to go through 20 years ago, the level 1 and 2 umpires manual, and then the coaches manuals. We used to have to fill these things out and actually print these things out and fill them out and then go through them with our coach in order to get accreditation. We don't do that anymore, but there's a ton of material in here that really helps you understand. Questions? And then a couple other documents. The match assessment form out here, you should be familiar with that. I think everybody on the call who has done a game at regionals or nationals would have gotten these. This is what we use to give you feedback. So it's written, we PDF it and send it to you so you've got a copy of it. We use that to help you understand what you're doing well and you want to keep doing and the things you need to be improving. There's the caution ejection form that if you do have a red or yellow card, you need to know how to complete this. There's materials for that. And there's a couple other things. The player count, you don't need to know that today, but that's just something you need to know if you're going to be a field umpire, because it does come up from time to time. And then we'll put the resources out here for match management. When that document becomes formalized, we'll put that out here in the document section. And then the other thing I wanted to go through, let's see, I have a page for it. Nope, must have closed it. Sorry, just hit it here. And I'll just mention this briefly for 2 seconds. There are accreditation levels at the umpiring that we do. There we go. So there are 3 levels. The old levels at 0, 1, and 2 are now known as introductory certification, development accreditation, and the top level is advanced accreditation. So how do you go through that? There's a description here of what that process is. There's theoretical and practical. There's the descriptions of the 3 levels. There's the umpire coach accreditation process. When do we do accreditation? Where are the materials? I've just shown you some of them. There are some of them referred to again. These are the ones you're most likely going to want to look at. Here is the spirit of the laws. Who is my coach? So I'm the head coach. I've got about half a dozen other coaches with me to help out, both on the goals and on the field. How long does accreditation last? And then here are your accreditation materials. So they're in 2 places. So you should have no problem finding them if you can't remember where they're at. So there's all the resources that you have available. Hopefully everybody on the call who has been with us for at least a little bit and has done a game or 2 has been through this and understands this. If not, by all means, reach out, ask me, ask one of the other coaches, and we'll help you get full understanding about any one of these categories. Sid, I see 6 questions in the chat or 6 comments in the chat. Are any of those questions I need to answer?
No, not at this time.
Okay. All righty. So let's jump back to this document, and we're going to go through this from the easiest or the lowest level of match management to the higher levels. So we'll start with the free kick. We're going to skip past that verbal warning. We're going to talk about that separately. So the free kick, a free kick may be awarded for a minor offense. And there's some examples here. One of my pet peeves is actually that very first one, probably why I put it first, a late hit. That means a player has disposed of the football. Somebody comes from behind or from the side and that ball's long gone and knocks him over, shoves him in the back. Those are dangerous. And the way you prevent that from happening, there's 2 things you got to do. Anybody on the call want to tell me what those 2 things are before I go through that myself? I'll do the Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Bueller, anybody?
Blow the whistle.
Well, that's a good one. That was a piece of it, but why would you blow your whistle if you're not looking at the play? That's a hint.
Are you talking about holding your gaze or just holding your vision on the player kicking the ball for a few seconds to confirm that there wasn't a late hit?
Absolutely. That's the first thing you have to do. It's applicable in every single sport. When you're in basketball or soccer, when that ball goes, everybody's natural inclination is to follow the ball. We call that ball watching, and it's usually a bad idea for a referee or an umpire. So in our sport, when that ball goes sailing because they've kicked it downfield, it's just natural to watch, see what kind of mark is going to happen, what kind of contest there's going to be. It's really natural to do that. If you take your eyes and follow the ball, you will miss that late hit every single time, guaranteed. So what we want you to do is to not follow the ball. We want you to keep your eye on the play, like Lori said, for at least 1 to 2 seconds and see if anybody decides to take a cheap shot. If they do, then I think it was Ryan who said, blow your whistle. So yes, the first thing you have to do is blow your whistle. The second thing is you have to have the gumption to make the call. So if you're seeing a late hit and you call it, especially early in the match, guess what's going to happen? players will adjust. Because, and I'll tell you, because I've been a player a long time in this sport, and I'll tell you, if I'm playing and you're refereeing my game, I will challenge you, not verbally, although my story with Milty will kind of take that to a different level. I will figure out what you're willing to do. I will figure out what you're willing to call, and I will watch you to see what you're watching. I will then tell my teammates what they can get away with. I'm telling you this as the head coach of the Umpire Association. You want to make sure that you're watching for late hits, because players will absolutely take advantage of you if you don't. Another reason you might award a free kick, the player is unhappy with a call and starts to argue with you or uses foul language. So you have options here. First time that happens, probably not worthy of a red card unless they really come after you, which is unlikely. But early in the match, they want to come after you with a call. Give them a chance to back off and say, you don't want to go there. You can use, the stop sign, the hand up. You can use that. You can say something like, I'm not going to listen to that kind of language. You have to approach me with respect, and I'll talk to you with respect. Those are tools you can use to calm somebody down. I'll talk to you at a break. I'll talk to you when the ball goes out of bounds. Anything like that to get them to stop coming after you and play the game. If they don't do that, then you can award a free kick. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you do it early in the match, guess what's going to happen? The players will adjust. If they know that you're not willing to put up with any crap, they will adjust. They'll say, okay, fine. I'll wait till the ball goes out of bounds, or there's a goal or a behind or something like that. At a break, I will ask the umpire, not yell at them. I'll try and find out what was going on. Because if you give a free kick away, I'll tell you that the other 17 players on your team are not going to be happy. So as the umpire, if you award a free kick for that kind of crap, guess what? You have 17 assistants that are about to help you administer that penalty. Guaranteed, 17 of them right away, instantly, because they don't want to give away a free kick for somebody doing something stupid like arguing with the referee, arguing with the umpire. Okay. I'll pause here. I want to have plenty of time for people to ask questions about awarding free kicks in these types of situations. And I see one more comment up in the chat. Sid, anything else that I need to answer?
Yeah, Steve Butler says, should it only be the captain that approaches the umpire during the break?
The formal answer to that question is yes. Now, there are informal pieces of the answer. And if somebody wants to ask you politely and quietly at a break, at an intermission, first, second, third, whatever intermission, or the ball's been blasted through and it's going to take a bit before it gets back to the center, and they want to ask you something, absolutely. Please talk with them. It's the whole point of having the captain be the only one that can really come and approach you is to keep everybody from approaching you and getting in your face. That's really what the purpose is. So if you want to build a relationship as the umpire with the players, by all means, talk with them quietly, answer their questions. When you're the second or third umpire in a 2- and 3-man system, and you got a chance to talk with somebody behind the play might not even be dead, but you're 100 yards behind play as the third umpire, and they want to ask you something, by all means, chat with them. Keep your eye on the play. Don't take your eye off the ball. Stand side by side, but keep your eye on the ball. Answer their question. If they're going to become smarter and they're going to approach you with respect and ask you a question, by all means, please, build that rapport with players and coaches by being open. If you're the umpires in charge of the play, no, they need to wait when you're not the umpire in charge of play. So that's a good question. Other questions about these, especially these two examples, when to award a free kick, when not to?
Barry here. I do have a quick one just going on with the captain side of things as well. Is it often, or is it a useful tactic to sort of use the public calling of the captain to, get a hold of their players? And, use it as a way to encourage the rest of those participating as sort of like a generalized warning. We do this in soccer all the time where, you yell out loud, that's the last one, or next time, those types of things. I'm curious to how often that's actually utilized in AFL.
Well, I think when you say in the AFL, if you're talking about the AFL game in general, it's going to vary from the levels. Certainly at the top level, the actual AFL, the players know not to do that, so they're just not going to do it. It's just simply not going to happen. At our level, a lot of players think they can get away with all kinds of stuff. So if it kind of depends on the tenor of the game, and so if there's a lot of barking and it's a lot of intensity between the teams, then you may want to just say, hey, send your captain over and I'll talk with your captain. And that keeps it even between the two teams, right? I'm only talking to the captains. Just send them both over. We'll talk. We'll get this straightened out. So it's really, you just have to kind of read that and decide if it's a friendly, games being played in the proper spirit. Then if you want to calm things down, you can use that to say, all right, I'm not going to let it escalate. Maybe the second quarter, getting towards halftime, it's getting a little more intense. You can use that to keep the intensity from getting out of control. It's just one of those techniques. So there's not a straight up answer for using the captains only. It's a bit of a read on how each individual game is progressing. Does that help? Okay. Other questions? I see one more comment, at least one more in the chat.
Yeah, it says, could a free kick for verbal abuse be paid against the bench?
Yes. The bench is part of the game. That includes coaches and assistant coaches. It includes water and message runners who darn well better not be talking to you unless they're saying, yes, sir, I'll get off the field. Anybody who is part of the team, which is not just players, can have something assessed against them. They want to drop a bunch of F-bombs from the bench, and you've warned them, hey, we can't have that, and they want to keep going. They've already been warned. So second warning, probably not going to change anything. So then you go to the free kick, and that should change something. So good question. All righty. All right, let's move on to the 50-meter penalty. 50-meter penalty may be awarded for multiple reasons. And just before we jump into those reasons, depending on the actual game, it may be awarded at a different distance. So the Division I, those are always 50 meters. Divisions 2, 3, 4, and I believe the women's Division II, those are awarded at 25. And I'm talking about the regional and national tournaments. Most of the local games are going to be paid out at 25 meters. And the Metro games, if they're played on the soccer field, you're probably paying those out at 15 meters. But it's still called a 50-meter penalty. That's the name of the penalty. So some examples: a dangerous tackle where player safety is a concern, but the tackle itself is not egregious. In this case, the umpire is sending a message to players to tackle correctly. A player is unhappy with a call and argues demonstratively, and that word is in there on purpose. And it says at the umpire, and at is italicized. They turn and they throw their arms up in the air and they're yelling at you. What kind of call is that? Arms in the air, making a whole issue of it. That's something where you might just pay a 50 straight away. Not putting up with it. You don't show me up. You didn't see the whole play. You were in the play. I saw the whole play because I was the umpire watching it. That's, again, 17 assistants will come to your aid if somebody gives up a 50-meter penalty for that. Some examples: if the player says that was a bullshit call, Sid, you can edit that if you need to. That was a BS call, and they're aiming it at you, right? That's different from you're the worst umpire ever. If they say the call is something, they're talking about the call you made. That's not personal, that's the call. If they say you're the worst umpire ever, well, one, you might respond with, wow, you've seen every umpire in the history of the planet? Wow, that's pretty cool. And then pay the 50. Or you can just simply pay the 50 and say verbal abuse of an umpire, because that's directed at you, not at the call, at you. They've made it personal. So that's where the parenthetical is there, angry at the call, not directly at the umpire. So if you've done a pregame and you said no back check, this is your first warning. So the first time they come and throw their arms up at you and they come at you, boom, 50 straight away, because they've been warned. Running through the mark is a 50-meter penalty. Now, our running through the mark is slightly different from the AFL because we don't have a stand rule in terms of the player standing on the mark. And we're going to be a little bit more lenient on the 2 meters as far as the distance, but you still want to be pretty darn close to that. So if somebody screws up and runs through the mark and they're not clearing the protected zone, there's a couple of different ways that can happen. They're in the zone. The player who has the free kick decides he wants to make a kick, or she makes a kick, starts to make that kick, and then the player who never cleared the 5-meter zone, who never cleared the zone, then turns and attacks the kicker. Since they never cleared the zone, they are not eligible to interfere with that kick. All those things are part of running through the mark, and that's an automatic 50. Again, 17 assistants will come to your aid. Sometimes in the local matches, you're going to find that new players will make this mistake. And the players who know the rule are going to say, oh, it's their first game. And my response has always been, I bet they don't make that mistake again. I don't really care if it's their first game. That's not my problem. I'll help teach them, but they've still broken a rule and there's still a penalty associated with it. Delay of game is another one. So if they don't give the ball back to the player who has earned a free kick on the full, they roll it to them, they drop the ball, they throw it 15 feet in the air, trying to make a delay of getting the ball back to them so they can't play on quickly. 50-meter penalty straight away. Again, oh, I didn't know, I picked up the ball, I didn't know. Sorry. Again, you won't make that mistake again. I don't care what your first game. Some players know that. Some players do that on purpose. They're testing you to see if you're going to call it. Just call it. Knocking the ball out of the hands of the player who has the free kick. This is after the whistle, of course. You've blown a whistle, you paid a free kick to number 12 in blue. Somebody comes along and slaps the ball out of her hands. 50-meter penalty straight away. Now you've delayed their opportunity to play on. Last bullet point, I'll scroll down so everybody can see it a little easier. Note that more than one 50-meter penalty can be assessed at the same time. And this example actually was from one of my games at Nationals last year. I called a player for running through the mark. It happened to have been a women's game. I was right in front of the man who was dead to us, Brian Barish, who was doing commentary, and he told me later he made a comment about this particular play. And this is exactly what happened. I called the player for running through the mark. It was a 50-meter penalty. So as we were moving to reset where that kick was going to be, and another player said, that's a BS call, blew my whistle again, moved him another 50 meters downfield. Apparently Barish, who was doing commentary in that game, said, who couldn't hear what I said, but he heard the whistle and we kept going. He said, uh-oh, somebody must have said, he literally said something, somebody must have said something, and that's not the umpire you want to say something to. So that's where you earn a reputation as an umpire for not putting up with anything. And players, when they see you as the umpire in that game, they know they can't get away with anything. And so what happened on that particular play is about 6 of the other teammates came up to her and said, you can't do that. And guess what? It didn't happen the rest of the game. Okay, so let me pause here. We're talking about 50-meter penalties. Does anybody have questions? I don't see any new comments, but are there any other questions people want to ask around 50-meter penalties? All right, we'll come back to that in just a second. Let's move on to the cards. You can go through these a little bit quicker. So now we're getting into the more serious aspect of your toolkit. Red and yellow cards. Do not take the field without red and yellow cards, period. You must have those as a field umpire. Goal umpires are not allowed to issue cards, but they are allowed to issue reports. We'll talk about that separately for the goal umpires. Yellow card. The yellow card is issued to a player as a cool-off. It's close to what the yellow card is in soccer. It's a message for one. But two, unlike soccer, the player must leave the field for 15 minutes of game time. It is used to warn players that they darn well better be playing footy, because if they don't, there are consequences if they don't feel like playing footy and they want to do other stuff. So a couple examples here. A player is unhappy with a call and argues. That player has already been penalized with a 50-meter penalty for arguing calls. You don't do another 50-meter penalty. They've already been warned. They've had a 50-meter penalty issued against them. You go to the next step. Yellow card. Go sit down. Go cool off. You can't play footy right now. You're done. So as you see here, it's not only merited, but must be issued. Of course, when you issue a card, it means paperwork. So don't be afraid of the paperwork. If your paperwork says that they've already had a 50 against them and they want to argue with it, they come to me or the field marshal or any other coach who's there to support you. They will back you 100% in this situation, guaranteed. So you don't have to worry about anybody saying, oh, no, don't give them 50, don't give them the yellow. That's not going to happen. We've all been through that, and if you're learning how to deal with this stuff, we are going to be there to support you. Player uses foul language directed at the umpire. So you're the worst umpire ever might be a 50-meter penalty, but depending on the game situation, because it's escalating, there's a lot of stuff going on. You've already issued a 50-meter. You go to the yellow card. They didn't learn from the 50. You go to the yellow card because they've made it personal, and we don't accept that. That's not sportsmanship. That is expressly prohibited in the rules. And then the third one, which is a really big one, a dangerous tackle, where the player safety is a concern. The tackle itself is egregious enough that it might or has caused injury, but not a reportable offense. That's the difference between the red and the yellow. So in this case, the tackle merits sending the player off. The umpire discretion here is important about just what happened. If the player ends up stunned, if the player is hit late and they've been warned for late hits, maybe it's a yellow card because it was a hit where they didn't pull up. They took 2 more steps, never pulled up, and just ran through the player on a late hit. That's a yellow card. If there's an injury, then you get into the red card, because we are, as you saw in the spirit of the laws, we are here to, as best as we can in a contact sport, prevent player injury. It doesn't look too bad, but you really got to get that player off because it was not cool. It was not a good hit, so to speak. It was definitely above and beyond. A yellow card is merited. It's a cool off. They don't have to be reported at this point. They're not going to miss any games. They will miss the 15 minutes, but they're eligible to come back in. I'll jump into the red card, and I'm going to guess questions around the cards will probably revolve around both. So let's jump into the red card here. A red card is issued to a player to remove them from the game permanently. They are done. So that player is also reported. Issuing a card means paperwork, and you saw on the resources list on the website, the documentation is there for you. And you have to fill this out and get it to us so we can do the tribunal on a red card. Must be done. A yellow card is paperwork, but no tribunal. We just want to know about yellow cards because we want to keep a track of the player history. If a lot of different players are getting yellow cards, that's one thing. If the same player is getting yellow cards, we want that as part of their history for a future tribunal. Red card is an automatic tribunal, period, end of story. They are going to be going to tribunal, and they are going to most likely miss games. Hard to issue a red card and have a player not get suspended. They pretty much earned the suspension once they get a red card. So a player who earns a second yellow card, by rule, is an automatic red card and report. And the reportable offense is for getting 2 yellow cards, much like soccer. Soccer, you get your second yellow, but it's within the game, not across games, within the game. That's a reportable offense. A player has been penalized for a 50-meter penalty or yellow card, continues to verbally abuse the umpire. Boom, You can change a yellow card, say, nope, you had a yellow, but you know what? You're not leaving the field, so now it's a red card. Congratulations. And they have to leave the field at that point. If they don't, it's a forfeit. And again, you issue a card and somebody doesn't want to leave the field. If you say if you don't leave the field, it's a forfeit, I guarantee you 17 assistants are going to come to your aid because they would rather play footy, even if they have to be a man down. A dangerous tackle that causes injury or is egregious and could have caused injury. So we're talking about the sling tackles here, the tackles that drive a player into the ground where their arms are pinned, where their head is not protected. All of those are dangerous and very likely to be red cards. If there was intent to injure, somebody took a run at a player, the ball was long gone, took 5 or 6 steps, they charged in, had no willingness to pull up at all. It looks like they're trying to cause an injury. Got to get that player off the field, likely a red card. Talks here, it's sling tackle, the 360 spin tackle. That's can't do that under any circumstances. Spin tackles are very dangerous. Sling tackles are dangerous. Grabbing the arms, but then driving the player so they can't protect their head, very dangerous. Those are the kinds that, at a minimum, yellow, potentially, or depending if the player got hurt, red card. You see the note down here, in the USAFL, development and advanced accreditation goal and boundary umpires are able to report a player, not send off like the red and yellow cards, but they can report. We do have those happen. If you have a report as a boundary or goal, you must fill out paperwork, just like the field umpire. I think, yeah. So let's pause here and find out what kind of questions people have around red and yellow cards. I see at least 2 more comments in the chat.
Yeah, from Steve Butler. Is a yellow card interpretation different to the AFL rules for a yellow card? Can a player be reported under a yellow card, striking, head high contact, tripping?
So it's an interesting question. So the first thing I'll say is at the AFL level, there is no such thing as a red or a yellow card. When they are reported, they are, the umpire will tell them right then and there on the field they've been reported. They are mic'd up, and so they know they're going to tribunal on Tuesday. But they don't issue cards and they don't send anybody off in the AFL. Now, in the leagues below that level, they do have red, yellow, and actually blue cards. We don't use the blue card. The yellow card, we use that to get somebody off the field for 15 minutes to cool off, and it's not reportable. Now, you fill out your paperwork because we want to keep track of that, but it's not a report. You do not go to tribunal for a yellow card unless they got 2 in the same game. Does that help answer that question?
Yeah, hi, it's Steve Butler here. Yeah, it's just a little bit different to what the rules of AFL are. That's why I just wanted to clarify, because
Yep.
I'm looking at moving over here and hopefully helping out with our local team here, and that is a little bit different because a yellow card can be a call off, but it can also be a report. So I just wanted to clarify that is actually different here than what it is in the local leagues in Australia. So if that's the case, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that that was the correct interpretation. So if I'm helping out down here, I don't want to be giving them the wrong information.
No, it's an excellent question. If you think it needs to be a reportable offense where they're going to tribunal, it's a red card, straight up. There's
okay.
Red card is
it
tribunal,
is slightly
period.
different, so that's fine. Just so long as I know.
Yeah. Because over here, you get a lot of the Americans play it more like American football, so they're doing stupid things, right? But we also have the Aussies that come over and think they can get away with a lot of stuff, and think they're going to be superstars over here, where they may not be a superstar back in Australia. Yeah. And so they think they can get away with a lot of crap. Yeah. There's a lot less of that going on than there was, 10, 15 years ago. But having said that, we still want to make sure that when it's a reportable offense, that it's very clear. Everybody knows here, when you get a red card, you're done for the game. You've got to go tribunal. It's that bad. And the yellow card is, you better go cool off, because if you don't, you're probably going to get a red card. So it's just, those are the 2 ways of thinking about it. If you think, oh my God, I can't believe he did that, that's really bad, it's going to be a red card. If you're thinking, he probably shouldn't have done that. The guy got up. It looks like he's okay. Yellow card, maybe. Just depends on what it was. But that's really where your discretion comes into play.
Okay.
If you I will say, if you issue a red card, and I've done this, I will issue a red card to get players off the field because they're wrestling, and I want to get that out of the game. I've sent players off, and then after the game, I've gone to the captain or to coaches of both teams and said, I'm going to withdraw my red card. I'm not going to report it. I'm going to withdraw. But what I've done is I've gotten the players out of the game because they're not playing footy. So that's another tactic you can use. What else is in the chat, Sid?
Robert asks, what is the procedure for the umpire off the ball, not primary, who witnesses a red card offense away from the play, like a punch? Is it a whistle immediately or wait till play stops?
That is an excellent question. I like that question. So if you are not the number one umpire, meaning the umpire in control of the play, you are still engaged in the game. Obviously, this umpire is, having witnessed an illegal act. And the way to administer that is to make note of the player who did it and the player who got done. So you need to have those for your report, your paperwork. And sounds like it's a striking offense, most likely. It depends on who has the ball. If the team that is offended is attacking for a goal, I would not blow it dead until after that shot has been taken or there's a turnover or the play stalls. And then I would blow it dead and I would issue the red or yellow card. If the player who is doing the offending, that player's team has the ball, kill it right away. When I say kill, I mean blow the whistle and administer the card. Okay. So does that help whoever answered or whoever asked that question? Hopefully that helps. And I will say, I was doing a game over in Australia for the International Cup one time. I will say that it was the Ireland team that was the offending one. I was the third umpire, roughly 100 yards, literally 100 yards behind play. And the player elbowed his opponent in the head. I was 100 yards behind play, blew my whistle to kill it because Ireland had the ball, brought it all the way back and gave him the 50, sent them off, gave him the 50-meter penalty. So guess what? Nothing else happened that game. They knew we were watching. All right, there's more in the comments. Sid, anything else that I want to address?
Is a free kick and 50-meter paid for a red card?
Another excellent question, which we're about to jump into. So I'll come to that. I'll come back to that in a second. Anything else in the chat?
No, just a thanks for the answers to these questions.
Okay. So what a nice segue. I wish I'd have planted that question myself. I should have had you do that, Sid. All right. How do we administer these penalties? Well, what do you know? It's right here in the rules. Here in this document, how do you administer penalties? Free kick. A free kick is awarded at the spot of the incident or the position of the ball at the time of the whistle, whichever is the greater penalty to the offending team. So let's use that example. You're 100 meters behind play and some idiot elbows his opponent in the head. Where do you administer the penalty? Where the penalty occurred, because the ball is downfield with the offending team. And then you have a free kick from there. So a late hit is a little different. A late hit is paid downfield. It's a little hard on the screens here, but you literally will point downfield. Kick goes, late hit, you blow your whistle, call late hit, and you point downfield. If you're in a 2 or 3 man system, the umpire who is controlling the marking contest will award that ball to the nearest player of the team that was offended, not the player who got late hit. It's a player nearest to the ball of the ball. If you're by yourself, you're going to have to do both of those. You're going to have to blow the whistle, call the late hit. You still point downfield because that's the signal for it, but then you'll have to look and see who the closest player is so you can go administer the free kick. Kick out violation by the defense. Free kick goes to the fullback from the back of the center square. So In that particular case, that free kick, somebody is we're doing a kick out after a point, right? Somebody doesn't clear the protected zone and they interfere with the kick. It's not a 50-meter penalty. You take that ball to the back of the center square. So still on the quote unquote defensive side of the field, and that fullback gets the kick from the back of the center square. So those are two different variations on the 50-meter downfield for the free kick. I'm sorry, I mean for that. How do you award a free kick? All right, 50-meter penalty. I'll do that, and then we'll pause and we'll jump into the last one for the cards. Is paid from the original spot of the infringement, moving directly towards the center of the goal line. So you don't go parallel downfield unless you happen to be exactly on the midline. The distance may be 50 or 25 or 15, as we discussed earlier. And there's some descriptions in here about how those rules are applied based on the type of match that you're doing. Let me pause there for the procedures for the free kick and the 50-meter penalty. I see two more comments as well. Any questions that we need to answer, Sid?
No.
Okay. All right, now let's jump into the red and yellow card. So yellow card. And there'll be a fair number of similarities between red and yellow, but with the yellow, first of all, you blow your whistle, you tell which player it is, white, 11. And you hold the card up, just like they see in the soccer games. Card goes up so everybody from 200 yards away can see that there's a yellow card being issued. You point to the bench, and that player must then leave the field and go to the bench. White, 11, yellow card, off. So I have one arm up, and the other arm is pointing to the bench, telling that player to get off the field. The replacement player may come directly on field, which saves time, obviously, because we have running clocks. And they do not have to wait for the player being sent off to leave the field. It's the same as the blood rule, which we don't need to talk about today, but the same with the blood rule. Get that replacement player on straight away, don't waste time. And the way you do that is like, the basketball traveling signal. You just roll your hands and get the replacement player on straight away. Play cannot resume until the player sent off is off the field, however. You get the replacement on, as soon as the player who is sent off is off the field, then you can resume play. And as you see the note there that decide they don't want to leave, just escalate to a red card and make it a report. They didn't do what they were told. 17 assistants are coming to your aid. A free kick is awarded for every single yellow card you issue. Yellow card always carries a free kick to the offended player, or for umpire abuse, the player nearest from the offending, the non-offending team. So some idiot wants to yell at you, blow your whistle, verbal abuse of the umpire, 50-meter penalty. If they've got the ball in their hands, well, then they're the ones who are going to take the free kick, move it down 50 or 25 or 15, free kick. Okay. The reporting umpire must complete the caution ejection form, which we're not going into tonight, but it's available for you on the website. So that player, did I miss it? Yeah, the first one says the player is not able to participate on field for 15 minutes, and it says of game time, right? So with a running clock, that's fairly straightforward. If it's about 10 minutes into a 20-minute half, when that half ends, you say at 5 minutes into the next half, that player is eligible to return. And often they'll ask you when it's closer to the end of a quarter, end of a half, when does the player get to come back on? And if you're not exactly sure, just say 6 minutes, 4 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever seems appropriate. You don't have to know the exact number. Just act like you know the exact number, and they're going to, okay, great, got it. 6 minutes, boom, we're done. All right. Now, red card. Similar, with a few extra things thrown into it. Player must leave the field immediately, is not eligible to participate in any USAFL sanctioned game until the tribunal is completed. If it's a tournament, they're done for the tournament until that tribunal is done. If they're found not guilty, they can come back and play the next game. If that tribunal doesn't happen before their next game, they're still not eligible. The reported player's team plays one player short for 15 minutes of game time. So in that case, you're not bringing a sub on. You're just sending a player off. And if it's 18 aside, now it's 17 versus 18 for 15 minutes of game time. At the end of that 15 minutes, the replacement player may come on They don't have to wait for a break in the play. They can come on directly once those 15 minutes of game time have expired. Again, confer with if you got a game timekeeper, if you're keeping it yourself, then let them know when that player is allowed to enter the field, because they're going to come on the field not replacing a player who's coming off straight away. So it might look a little funny when somebody decides to just run on the field. Just be aware of that. Play cannot resume until the player who is sent off is off the field. Should they refuse to leave the field, that player's team will forfeit the game. Pretty severe penalty. Again, 17 assistants coming to your aid. The free kick, which is awarded for every single red card, is awarded to the offended player, or for umpire abuse, the nearest player to the non-offending team. So the 50-meter is awarded on every single card. So it's a free kick and a 50. And then at the conclusion of the match, the reporting umpire must notify the reported player's coach and the player that they've been reported and must go to tribunal. That's usually pretty straightforward. They already pretty much know it, especially at the tournaments. You want to do that literally as soon as the siren goes. Find that head coach and just say numbered 11 white. I'm going to do the paperwork. He's going to have to go to tribunal before he can play again. And you don't talk about the penalty. You can say it was for striking, but you don't say anything else. You don't discuss the play under any circumstances on a report. You just say they're reported for X. They've been reported for verbal abuse of an umpire. They've been reported for striking. They've been reported for spitting, whatever it happens to be for the report. You do not discuss anything to do with the report. You go fill out the paperwork, turn it in, and then if the tribunal needs you to come and actually be part of the part of the tribunal, they will do that. So that's the last two bullets there. Doing the paperwork for nationals and regionals, that's easy because we have that there on site. We take care of it. The tribunal is already set up to be taken care of for those tournaments. For other matches or other tournaments that are not run by the USAFL, then you'll have to go to whoever's in charge of that game or that tournament to figure out how to deal with the tribunal. If it can't be done on site, that player is done for the day, and it will get kicked upstairs to the USAFL, and the USAFL will decide how they need to administer that tribunal. When I say USAFL, I don't mean the UA. I don't mean the Umpire Association. I mean the USAFL. That's the board, and they will deal with it. Right? You are required to attend that tribunal unless when a not guilty plea is entered. If they plead guilty, then they won't have to call you in, obviously. But if there's a not guilty and they have to go through the proper tribunal procedure, which there is a full procedure for that, you may be called if it's on a phone call for later, or be required to come to the actual tribunal between games on site. You may be required to go and submit your evidence. I was there at 10 minutes into the first half. So-and-so said XYZ to me, red card. Sent him off. Any questions? And they might ask questions. What else had gone on in the match? What else did they, if there was a previous warning, something like that. Why did you go to red card? Well, they've been warned previously about swearing at me directly. Okay, great. Now I understand why you did the red card. Okay. So remember, card always includes 50-meter penalty and free kick to the offended team. Red card, down 15 minutes. Replacement player can come on. Yellow card, not down 15 minutes. Down player numbers. But the replacement player comes on straight away, and the yellow carded player is off for 15 minutes. All right. Pausing here because we're right about at the top of the hour. What other questions does anybody have around red and yellow cards?
Jeff, we got a couple questions. This one may have already been answered, but we'll want to make sure that Jay has his question answered. That do you have to wait for replacement player to come on the field to resume play?
Normally the replacement player is hustling on because they're excited to get on and be able to play. I've never had a situation where I've had to wait for a replacement player to get on the field before the player being sent off has left. I've never seen that. So theoretically it could happen. And yes, you would want to wait till they're on. It's why we say bring them on straight away, because they need to get to a certain position. So if there's going to be a play that's semi-near a potential kick for goal, you don't want to penalize the team getting the replacement player on by giving the free kick so quickly that that replacement player can't come on.
Okay, the next one is, who is responsible for keeping the time that a player is off?
If you have a formal timekeeper, which we do at the USAFL matches, then that would be the person who does it. If you're doing non-USAFL matches, I mean non-regionals, non-nationals, then it depends on how it's set up for that tournament or that game. You may have it on your watch, in which case it's you. Your partner umpire, could be a goal umpire as well, may have that particular time being tracked. Or there may be somebody on the sideline that's working the clock, a clock for you. So it just depends on those two circumstances. USAFL run matches will have timers, and they're going to tell you how much time it was at that point, and they'll, from there you can figure out when their replacement can come on, and everything else you just have to work with how it's set up for that either tournament or game.
Okay, and the last question in the chat regarding a tribunal. Does the offended player get a copy of the paperwork on the day of the tribunal, or is it up to the league to forward that paperwork to the player?
It's normally not given to the player. The league will review it. They will call the tribunal. I'll just go through a little bit of the tribunal procedure. They will call the tribunal. First of all, they're going to say, all right, so-and-so with their representative, usually their coach, will show up to the tribunal panel and say, we're going to plead not guilty. So then they have to have a formal tribunal. If they plead guilty, because a lot of times that happens, they did it, they know it, they just plead guilty, right? If they're going to plead not guilty, then they'll say, great, we're going to call the tribunal, we'll get the 3 people on the tribunal panel, we'll get the reporting umpire, you and your representative will be there, and we'll go through the whole process. They will then read through what the report is. Number 11, White, reported at 6 minutes into the second half at approximately the midfield area near the center circle for striking number 7, Blue, in the head with his elbow. Right. So that's the report. And then the Q&A can follow from there. That's all spelled out in the tribunal procedures. So they don't actually get a physical copy of the report, but it will be read to them so they can respond to it and ask questions.
All right, that's all we have in the chat box, Jeff.
Okay. So there's a couple things, and we'll wrap up with this, and then those who have additional questions can stay on. The bottom of this has some match control techniques. I've talked about some of these things already. When we get this out on the website, you can take a look at this if you have things you want to add to help your colleagues with things you can use to control the match. By all means, send that to us. We can add it to these pointers, these helpful techniques. So the one I wanted to relay was when I was coaching Millsy when he was getting his advanced accreditation. I was captain for the Nashville Kangaroos that day, and I was barking at him. I was running my mouth. I was doing all kinds of stuff because I was trying to help him before he went to Australia with how to deal with players who do that. And so I was up in Chicago, and I yelled at some play that he got it right, but I didn't care at that point. I was pushing his buttons, and I was yelling at my player out on the wing with Millsy to my back about what a terrible call that was. His response was something I coached him on, which I finally got out of him. And he said, hey, are you talking to me? I turned around and I said, no, I'm talking to my player out there. And I shut up after that. End of the game. He comes over to me and says, Jeff, what was that all about? I started laughing. And I said, Millsy, I finally got you to use this technique to say, are you talking to me? And it shuts it down. I was trying to show you how that works. He was mad. He might have used a word that's probably not used in the game. I'll just say it that way. But he understood what I did. And he then called me later in the season. I think the next month, actually. He'd been up to Chicago again. He used the technique again. And he asked the player, are you talking to me? And the player turned around and said, yeah, I'm talking to you. Whistle, 50-meter penalty. And so guess what happened? That player came up to Millsy afterwards and said, that was probably the wrong answer, wasn't it? It's like, yeah, that was the wrong answer. But that's part of the things you can do to get a player to calm down. You don't have to just nail him with a 50 or a yellow card straight away. You can use the hand. You can say, are you talking to me? You can say, send your captain over, I'll discuss it with them. There's things you can do before having to pull the toolkit out and start using the 50s and the yellow card and red card, etc., unless it's perfectly warranted. So as it's building up, those are things you can do. All right. If there's, I'll pause one last time for any questions. If there's not, we'll call it an end to the clinic, but we'll stay on for anything additional and let people go. Anything else?
Yeah, something else that just popped into the chat box. After a red card, can a player accept a 1-game ban to play later in the day in a day tournament?
Well, that's up to the tribunal. If they were cursing at the umpire, it's probably going to be a 1 game. And they would just say, I'm going to plead guilty because I'm not going to get out of it. I might as well just plead guilty. And I'll before hanging up this call, what I will say is the tribunal, when they find somebody guilty, they will look at what their plea is in addition to the evidence. You slung somebody down and broke their shoulder. That's not a 1-game suspension, right? You're mouthing off at the umpire and you show remorse. I shouldn't have done that. I did it. Boom. 1 game, right? That's pretty straightforward. Everything else in between might be 2 games, 3 games, 4 games. If they plead guilty and are found guilty, it's going to be at the higher end of the spectrum. Sometimes you can give them the choice and say, if you plead guilty to this particular charge, it's 1. If you plead not guilty and you're found guilty, it's 2. Your choice. What do you want to plead? So it's not straightforward. It's really up to the tribunal to say what they think the 2 answers merit. Could be, if it's bad, it might be, it's a 2-game suspension for what you did, but if you plead not guilty and you're still found guilty, it's going to be 4. What would you like to do? That's up to the tribunal, though. There's nothing in stone. There's nothing written that says it has to be X, Y, or Z. I've been on tribunals before on the panel. That's what I've done to try and get people to understand. Don't waste our time when you know you're guilty, because we're just going to make the penalty more severe. That's really what we're doing. So hopefully that helps answer the question.
That's it from
Right.
the chat box.
All right, thanks. Everybody, thank you so much for being on the call. Those who want to hang up, please do. We're going to have this recording out there probably by the, I'll say next week. I don't want to put too much pressure on Tara to get this done. But thank you so much for the questions. Thank you for participating. By all means, when we get this document out there, review it, use it. It's there for you. It's to help you out. Talk about it with your coaches when you're out doing games and something's happening. Refer back to this. This is what it's for. It's a tool to help you become a better and better umpire, which will help you with your accreditation process.